Alright, good morning, children. I'm sorry for missing school today, but I'm making this video so you can still get this work in. So, first things first, you guys should have two handouts at this point. The first one is the Causes of World War I, or main handout that we used to learn about the long-term causes of World War I earlier this week. And then the second one is the Overview of World War I handout that you picked up today. So we're going to use these slides to take notes on both of those handouts. So let's get started. So the first thing, we got to go over the objective. So the first one is to identify the importance of all those long-term causes in causing World War I. We also need to be able to identify the characteristics of World War I, including things like total warfare, trench warfare, modern military technology, and how it leads to high casualty rates. And we also need to know the effects of that new military technology, which is, of course, high casualty rates, or in other words, just a lot of people unfortunately die. Alright, so the long-term causes of the war, let's go over them really quickly again. So remember, the acronym to help you to remember all of this is MAIN, M-A-I-N. And so the M stands for militarism. So countries in Europe at this point, they started to really rapidly build up their militaries because they have factories now because of the Industrial Revolution, which we just learned about. And they're just staying ready for war. And they also started to glorify military power. It became this really strong sticking point for them to have a strong military. There's also alliances, right? So there's two major alliance groups. There's the Triple Alliance with Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary. And then we also have the Triple Entente, which is England, France, and Russia. And there's more alliances than that, and some of the alliances were even secret. And so when war or conflict breaks out, we're going to have all these countries pulled into conflict in just a matter of months. Because they, swore to protect and to work with each other if they were attacked. We also see imperialism during this time. So we already learned about that as well. But that's a stronger country taking over a weaker one. So these European powers were competing for colonies in Africa and Asia, and it leads to more conflict that eventually breaks into war. And then there's also nationalism, and that's that intense pride in your country. So militarism and imperialism, they both swirl together here, and it leads to these rivalries amongst European powers to the point where they're just competing to overpower one another or to be the dominant country in this region. Now, those were the long-term causes. What is the spark that starts the war? Well, the Ottoman Empire, which we learned about a little while ago, a couple units ago, they're falling apart. It's a really old empire at this point. So you have nationalistic groups in different parts of the empire in southeastern Europe that are fighting for their independence, and they've achieved it. So you have Serbia, Greece, Albania, Bulgaria, and Romania that all get their independence. And so you have other countries in this region as well that begin to fight for theirs too. So look at Serbia here, another region that's fighting for independence. And they are a Slavic people, so that's like the ethnic group for southeastern Europe and the Balkans region. And so the Serbians are fighting to unite all of these Slavic peoples from these different countries. Russia even supports them in this because Russia also includes a lot of Slavic peoples. Austria-Hungary, one of the largest countries in Central Europe they do not support this. They even, in some ways, control some parts of Serbia. So in 1908, Austria annexes Bosnia and Herzegovina, which had large Slavic populations, shattering the dreams of Serbia. And so in 1914, when one of the leaders of Austria-Hungary goes on a parade pretty much through Serbia, he's assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. His name was Archduke Ferdinand, the guy that was shot. And so when that occurs, Austria-Hungary pretty much declares war on Serbia. Russia steps in to support Serbia, and then, as we know, because of those alliances that we just talked about, everybody else gets pulled into this conflict, and it's just super problematic. So here's what you're going to do. On your Causes of World War I assignment, answer the closing question. Which long-term cause do you think had the biggest impact on the start of World War I? And you're going to do this in 2 sentences, at least 2 sentences. And I'm giving you sentence starters here. So pause the video, use the sentence starters, answer the questions. Answer the question. Alright, now we need to also know why each country got involved in World War I. First, Austria-Hungary, they wanted revenge on Serbia for the assassination of the Archduke. Russia, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, so Russia pops in to support Serbia. Germany, they were allied with Austria-Hungary, so they declared war on Russia and France. And France was allied with Russia, so they're pulled into it. And then England, here's England's part in this. So like Germany invades Belgium to go after France. And so when that happens, Britain wanted to obviously protect France, so England steps in the war. All right, so now the early results of the war, like what are the developments at the beginning? So the Germans had a plan called the Schlieffen Plan, where their goal was to, as quickly as they could, defeat France and then fight Russia on the other side of their country. So they wanted to defeat France in the west here and then go beat Russia. Well, that didn't go as well for them. So in the Fist battle, the first battle of the Marne over here in France, we see that Germany was defeated. Like it wasn't going to be easy for them to just kind of take over. And one of the reasons for why that occurs is that on the Western Front, so this western side of the fighting western part of Europe, there was a stalemate. Like the war kind of slows down to a grind, and it's really difficult to fight. So this is also due to trench warfare. So soldiers were fighting out of trenches. So as you can see on the images here, trench is really just a big ditch that both sides had kind of dug into, and they were really just kind of slinging bombs at each other, hoping that they could kill enough people on the other side to overcome their enemy. But this also led to a lot of deaths, this trench warfare, a lot of deaths. Okay, so another major concern during the war was this idea of total war. So total war was this thing where during wartime, countries kind of felt like they needed every single person in their country to contribute in every single way that they could to win. So countries used all of their resources. One of the things that people could do is ration. So you couldn't just go in the store and buy whatever you wanted. Women and minorities joined the workforce, and so they helped to build guns and tanks and bombs and all this good stuff because there were so many men going off to fight. Countries even used colonial soldiers from their colonies to help them to fight as well. And they also expected people to conserve resources as well, not to just kind of spend all their money or not to waste all their gas or just not to waste all their food. Like literally just do whatever they could. Even donate to the government, give money to the government, as some people would do. All right, now Russia during the war, they performed pretty poorly. Like they have a poorly run government. Like they're really ineffective and inefficient. Like they're still kind of behind the times in terms of industrialization. So they don't have as much money as some of the other European countries that are fighting. Their troops start to have lower morale because the troops aren't really getting paid like that. They're not well equipped. And then back at home, people are running out of food. And so just to show how bad Russia's doing in the war, in 1915, they lose 2 million soldiers. Now, the greatest contribution of Russia is that they did help to pull some of the German focus away from France. They relieved that pressure on France by fighting in the east, but eventually things would get so bad that they would have to leave the war and they would have a revolution that we will talk about later. Now, there are new weapons during the war. There's a ton of them. There's machine guns, which we talked about earlier this week. You have poison, mustard gas, or also known as mustard gas. So this could kind of be really effective, and then to kind of combat that, gas masks were created as well. Tanks are something that help to break the stalemates on the Western Front. So when we say stalemates, that's like this grind down in the fighting where it kind of slows to a stop because nobody's really gaining any ground, nobody's really winning, they're just fighting in those ditches, those trenches. Well, the tanks help to break up those stalemates. Airplanes, they're used during the war, but it's mostly for spying. But another major development, mostly effectively used by the Germans, was the submarine. So the submarines were used to shoot down thousands of supply ships, and the Germans were just really good at it. This is going to be one of the causes that brings the United States into the war. Look how many ships they shot down. And of course the effect of all these weapons is that the war is more deadly than any war before it. All right, so why does the U.S. get involved? Well, let's talk about it. So the United States initially wanted to stay out of the war, but the U.S. is pulled into the war because of Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare. They're just shooting down whatever ship they feel like has enemies on it. Americans die on some of those ships, which causes a major concern. There's also propaganda from the U.S. government showing that Germans are super aggressive and killing a lot of people. And then there's the Zimmerman telegram. So Germany sends a message to Mexico to try to get Mexico to enter the war against the United States, but it's caught and of course the United States joins the war. And once that happens, the war is quickly over. And yeah, we win pretty much because we're cold like that. And the Treaty of Versailles is the treaty that officially ends the war and leads into those post-war negotiations.